Hey guys, this is the mind of Lilith, and thank you for joining me today. I'm going to be sharing my thoughts about the Supreme Court's decision to reverse Roe versus Wade. This is controversial, of course, because pro-life and pro-choice advocates have been at odds about this issue since, the law was passed in 1973, I believe, or 73. And I'm going to be analyzing this from a Black American perspective. White women have abortions as far as numbers and frequency more than Black women do, but by percentage. Black women have abortions more than every other race of women. And there is definitely a direct correlation with the status of Black women and the quality of life of Black women and the rate of abortions in the Black community. So, in my old life, I was a data analyst, and I used to look at data in the aggregate, right? I don't look at individual bits of data for anything because it doesn't tell the whole story. Out of 300,000 plus abortions per year, you can probably cluster these abortions in categories of like 10 or 15 reasons why women are doing this, right? It could be rape, it could be incest, one-night stands, somebody doesn't know who the father of the child is, prostitution, there are, infidelity, health issues. There are about 10 to 15 reasons why there are 300 plus thousand abortions in the Black community every year, right? And so I'm not really concerned about saying what is right or wrong because there's so many reasons why women legitimately want to have abortions that you cannot argue against, right? Because we live in a patriarchy that does not care about women and in a system where men sometimes use reproduction to control women and to keep women in abusive situations, which is what we saw with Martell and Melody. And I hate to, use her as an example, but this is sort of a common knowledge on this platform, right? This is kind of a theme on the platform, Love and Maritime's Field. So I'm going to use Melody and Ariana as an example of two different reasons why a woman would have abortion. So Melody was married to Martell for over a decade, and she had 4 kids by him. And 3 months after she had her 4th child, she got pregnant again with her 5th child. Martell was still cheating on her and emotionally and psychologically abusing Melody, so Melody decided to terminate her pregnancy, right? That's an abortion by a married woman. Martell was messing with a woman named Ariane who had 2 abortions or 2 miscarriages or whatever. She had an abortion because she was having sex with a married man who did not want to have a baby. So there are 2 different women with 2 different reasons why they would choose to have an abortion. The common denominator is the man. Martell is the reason why these 2 women chose to have an abortion, because a lot of Black women, they don't feel protected or provided for by the men in their community. So while we enjoy hopping on their penises because they're attractive men, we don't trust them to take care of their children. We don't feel safe around them. Okay? So a lot of Black women, in my opinion, they're like in a state of panic. Like, okay, if I make a mistake, there are no safeguards to protect me. The man who I chose to lay down with, he's not going to take care. I don't trust him to take care of my child, right? There are too many restrictions and limitations on my freedom to be able to take care of that child once I have that child also, because there's no universal health care, there's no maternity leave. So if I get pregnant with this baby, it's going to be a struggle for me to take care of this child by myself, because we live in a society that is patriarchal and the mothers are not cared for. So the government cares about the babies for tax purposes, for tax revenue, okay? The reason why, in my opinion, this Roe versus Wade is reversed is because the birth rates in the United States are very low. And traditionally, when you have low birth rates, there are 2 options. You can have massive immigration like we're seeing with the Hispanic community, right, and Mexicans, or you can have, you can make abortions illegal and force women to give birth to children that they don't want, or force women to give birth to children that may put their lives in danger in a way. Sometimes women have ectopic pregnancies, which are life-threatening, right? We now have technology that will tell us whether or not a child would have genetic defects that would severely reduce their quality of life, right? Women may choose to abort because of that, right? For those reasons. But the government is not concerned with that. This is not a moral situation. This is about money, okay? The government only cares about money because we're in a patriarchy. This is about making sure that there are enough bodies to pay the taxes for these wealthy people who have basically control over the entire world. Okay? Now, again, I'm not for or against abortion, and by and large, right? This is, as an astrologer, I can see abortions in someone's birth chart, right? I can see abortions, miscarriages, death of children in the natal chart. So it's not a judgment, right? I'm speaking about it from a sociological perspective, okay? From a socioeconomic perspective and a cultural perspective. Why are so many Black women uncomfortable with having children for Black men or for men they're choosing to lay down with? What is going on in the minds of women that's to the tune of hundreds of thousands per year? I didn't say this was one or two off cases. I'm saying among these clusters of women, right? If we put the reasons for abortions in specific categories, again, rape is a category, incest will be a category, pedophilia will be a category, one night stand could be a category, prostitution could be a category, healthcare issues could be a category, financial reasons could be a category, safety, domestic violence. So there's like 10 reasons top, right? So why are 300,000 women having the same issue? What kind of society or system do we live in that would cultivate this type of chaos? When you think about system design, right? The people and the institutions who create these systems that affect society, they know exactly what they were doing. In my opinion, it wasn't a coincidence that once we had legal social integration, and after the civil rights movement, a few years later, they said, oh yeah, we can ban abortions now, because they knew many white women would be like Tiffany's mother, having sex with random Black men. And they wanted to give white women free and open access to abortions to make sure that, they had the choice to abort these unwanted Black children. And women the same thing, Black women the same thing. They wanted to give Black women the option to have easy access to abortions to ensure that the Black population didn't reach a certain number, okay? There are about 40 million Black people in the United States. Since the 70s, about 33 million babies, Black babies, have been aborted. That is almost double. The population of Black America would be double were it not for Roe versus Wade. So even with these abortions, we still have a high level of Black children in foster care as well. So the main question I have is, what kind of system do we live in where Black women feel the need to have 300,000 plus abortions per year? What is going on in this society, in the Black society, in the Black community, where Black women would rather make this very difficult and painful decision than to have a baby by a man that they chose to lay with? I didn't mention the rape and incest. Those are small percentages. Most of these women have chosen to have sex with these men. So what is it about Black men that Black women may feel comfortable having sex with them, but they don't want to have children for them? That is the question I have. It is not just about the women who are married and dealing with abuse. Again, those are smaller instances. A few weeks ago, I read a study or some sort of paper, I forgot where it was from, that was like, during the pandemic, pregnancies went down about 70%. And I'm thinking to myself, so you're telling me that 70% of American pregnancies are as a result of like one-night stands or like girlfriend, boyfriend, uncommitted relationships? Because during the pandemic, married couples have more time to be at home together, to have babies, right? We saw a baby boom among married couples in a sense. But then you're telling me that the majority of people who are getting pregnant are doing so outside of the confines of a committed relationship? Is that what did I read that correctly? So again, what kind of society do we live in where this is the norm? Where 1 million babies are aborted per year, if you add up Black and white women. Almost 1 million babies aborted in this country? Why? There are 10 different reasons, yes, but what kind of system are we living in where that's the optimal choice? A system isn't just about economics and resources. It's also about mindsets. It's also about education. It's also about the culture of the system, right? We live in a patriarchy that is capitalistic. So it's all about money. Money over everything, right? They use the media to sell certain lifestyles that are beneficial to the capitalistic system, right? So they want you to go to the club because when you go to the club, you spend money on liquor, you spend money on outfits and clothes, you're not at home, right? You're spending money. They don't want you at home on Friday night. They want you at the movies, right? They want you hanging out with people you don't really know or don't care about because that's a part of fueling the economy too. When the pandemic happened and people were forced to stay home, a lot of bosses were like, okay, when do we get these people back to work? We need these people to buy stuff, right? From street vendors, from stores, from restaurants. We need to keep this capitalistic money machine flowing, even if it means forcing people to go back to work away from their homes and their families when they don't have to. So this country's never been about family or children. All of a sudden now they're concerned about children because what? Because the numbers are too low. The population is in steep decline. Okay, we're not at replacement levels for the first time maybe in a few decades, right? So now you're going to be forced to have children that you don't want to take care of because the state needs to get tax revenue. The schools need their tax revenue. These banksters and these corporatists who live in different countries who have investments in the American economy, right? In American business, they need you to have babies to make sure that they can stay in their palaces, in their castles, in their little enclaves where they're protected from the unwashed masses. They need you to keep having babies for them to stay rich. Again, there's no right or wrong to this. I understand why people are pro-life also. Because if you think about it, if Black women had not aborted 30-something million babies in 50 years, then we would have more political power because we don't have economic power. We don't have any money. So our power would come from our numbers and our ability to vote at the polls, right? And our ability to kind of sway the political landscape by sheer numbers. Which is why I think it's easier for Black women to get an abortion than to get a business loan. Or to get a home loan. Okay? We will help you kill your babies. But we won't help them when they're born. Welfare and a shitty school system is not helping babies. That's just ensuring that Black babies go into the prison pipeline, right? The school to prison pipeline. So welfare and living in ghettos with shitty food and shitty water and shitty education is not helping anything. For people who will say, well, the government can help you with social programs. No, that's not helping anything, obviously, because we've had all these abortions and the conditions in the Black community are actually worse. There are less marriages. There's more mental illness. There's more depression, right? There's more body dysmorphia. There's more suicide. There's more femicide. So the abortions didn't help anything. So it's the culture that's the issue. So who is responsible for creating this culture where Black women feel comfortable having sex with men who were not worthy of having children? Do we put men on a pedestal to the point where we will allow them to have access to our bodies even when they don't deserve it? Is this penis worship too? The patriarchy, right? Any man at any cost, even if he ain't shit, let me give my body to him and let him have free access to me. I know he ain't shit, but he's hot though, right? And I feel better when I'm with him because I'm told that I need a man. So let me just open myself up to somebody who ain't shit, who I don't want to have children for, and then end up pregnant by, and I'm like, damn, I don't want a baby by him though. So this is a very complex issue, because on the one hand, yes, women should have the right to choose an abortion if her health is at risk, if she's in an abusive situation, right? If, the man is using, is getting her pregnant to keep her tethered to an abusive marriage, which a lot of men do, right? If the woman's health is in decline, if the woman has no family and she's broke, like there's many legitimate reasons why women would say an abortion is okay, right? I shouldn't even say legitimate. There are many salient reasons why women would choose to have an abortion. But the problem is the system that creates these conditions in the first place. The system that encourages women to put men on a pedestal to the point where we are encouraged by media, by music, by entertainment, by society, by culture, to sleep with any man that gives us attention. That's what it sounds like to me. That's a part of the issue too. It's not just rape and incest. Why are we putting men on a pedestal to the point where we're giving them free sexual access to our bodies without any protection? Yes, I know men are hot and they feel good, but then where's that energy when you get pregnant? If they're so hot, why don't you want to have their hot ass baby, right? There are multiple forms of birth control. All women can't take birth control. Me personally, I've gotten really, really sick from birth control. A lot of black women get really sick from birth control. So I understand this. I understand women getting pregnant by accident. It happens all the time. But again, that's why I'm like, this is a systemic problem. It can't be fixed with abortion, and it can't be fixed by banning abortion either. How many women will now be killed or have their lives threatened because they've chosen to have sex with a married man who wants to hold on to his wife and wants to get rid of the problem? If you're having sex with a married man now, right, and you're not using protection, you'd be stupid to keep doing so. After today, you would be dumb as hell to continue to have sex with a man that is married or otherwise engaged. You were dumb before, right? You were dumb as hell before and pick-me-ish, but now the laws are not in your favor for an abortion. I suggest if you're having sex with men who are engaged to other women, who are married to other women, right? For the sake of your sanity and even your life, I suggest you stop that relationship now. Because some of these men will go the Ray Caruth route. They'll get rid of the mother and the child to avoid paying child support. A lot of men would rather go to jail for life, getting their pussy stretched out, right? Instead of paying child support. A lot of men would rather go to jail instead of paying child support to a woman they don't respect or love, or who isn't giving him access to her body sexually. Men get really stingy with the money when they can't fuck you. Or they feel like another man is having sex with you and they don't have ownership of you anymore. And now they're very stingy with the money because they're resentful and petty and bitter. Right? As long as you still keep having sex with them, they're cool with you. They're a little okay. They'll be less stingy with the money because you're still fucking them and they're still getting their needs met. Even though you're doing it only because you want them to help pay child support, but you don't really like them like that anyway because they didn't marry you, right? If you think you're going to get a man to commit to you because you had a baby by him, just look at what happened with Ariane and Martell, right? Ariane went from being a girlfriend to nothing after she had the baby for him. After 6-7 years of relationship, of having relations with this man, they're not even together. And she had a baby for him while he was married to somebody else. So again, what is going on in the minds of black women where we feel comfortable having sex with these men but not having their babies, right? The problem for a lot of women is the fact that abortion services won't be readily accessible in case of an emergency or a mistake. And this happens a lot. But like I said, I mentioned this before, when you look at things in the aggregate, you look at the hundreds of thousands of mistakes that are happening in this country, what kind of system do we have that makes it easier for women to make these types of mistakes? It's not a judgment on the women, but I'm judging the system itself. Because again, the people in the institutions and the think tanks who designed this system designed it to work exactly the way that it's working. Okay, so now that the Black community is a shell of itself, it's no longer unified, it's not empowered anymore, let's reverse this abortion situation because we're not threatened by these numbers anymore. The Black community is too weak to be a political adversary to us. Let's reverse this because now the tax base is being reduced because of COVID and other health issues. The boomers are dying out. We have less economic security. Inflation's on the rise. People will have less babies. So let's force these children, these women that have children, to also make sure that our coffers are filled with tax revenue from the permanent underclass, working at Walmart, working at Amazon, working for minimum wage. They still got to pay taxes. So imagine if this Roe versus Wade decision, right, stopped 500,000 abortions per year among all women in this country. In 10 years, that's 5 million people. In 20 years, that's 10 million people. So in 20 years, there will be 10 million more babies than there would have been if this law had not been reversed. What's happening again is that boomers are dying out and the numbers are not being replaced. I believe this year and the next year is like the last of the boomers retiring. I think 2020, even 2030, that's max. They got to move fast to make sure that we don't abort too many babies so that we can't pay our taxes or we can't pay for pensions and Social Security. This is a Ponzi scheme. So the children that are being aborted are not going to be able to pay for the boomers' retirement and Social Security and pensions. That is what they're concerned about. That is why they're trying to reduce the population with the older population. They're trying to kill the older population with their biological weapons. And they need to increase the birth rate among poor people, especially, to ensure that the remaining boomers have Social Security, have pension. It's a Ponzi scheme. They've already spent the money. They've already spent the trillions of dollars that was collected from boomers in the 60s and 70s and 80s and 90s. They spent that on their illegal wars. They sent that money to Ukraine. They sent that money to Afghanistan. They sent that money to Iraq. They sent that money to the CIA dark operations that was flooding drugs into the Black community. They spent so much of our money on some bullshit that now I'm talking about the government, okay, and the people in power, that now they need to force women to give birth to babies that they won't even take care of. The government doesn't care about universal health care or maternity leave or reducing rents, right, for women who are single mothers even, okay, or creating economic opportunities for the men so that they don't feel the need to abandon their children. They don't care about that. They just want the babies to fill the coffers with their tax revenue. They need the babies to pay for Medicare, okay, the babies to pay for Social Security. The ones that aren't even born yet, there's already a tax and a debt put on these children. So they have to ensure that, okay, if we stop abortions, we'll have 20 million at minimum, more babies in 20 years, right, than we would now. Imagine if those kids had kids, 2 children apiece. That's 40 million babies. That's way more money for them. They don't want to have to keep relying on immigration, because when you rely too heavily on immigration, you change the social cultural landscape of a country, which, disempowers certain groups of people who are white. So they don't want that. So they want immigration, but not too much immigration. They want to encourage women to have more kids because of the economic situation. It's about money. It's not about women's rights. However, why are women so angry about this? It's not just about the choice. It's also about a feeling of not being safe. Black women don't feel safe in their community. We don't feel safe when we make mistakes. When we make mistakes, we fall into hell. There are no safeguards for us. The men don't protect us. The moms, our mothers don't have any paper like that. So we're like left to our own devices for about 7, 8, 10 years until our child is old enough and we get our little degree, and then we can, level up in society economically. But we don't want to struggle like that. That's not fair for us. So we're on our own. We know this. Most women, Black women by and large, know that if they have a child, they're on their own, physically, emotionally, financially, socially even. We're on our own because we're in the patriarchy. If we were in the matriarchy, Black women would not be as concerned about this issue because they know that they'd be safe and protected and cared for by the matriarch of the community and the matriarch of their family. But we don't have that kind of system. The state is now the surrogate parent. The state that provides a shitty education, right? The shitty healthcare system that is responsible for the high infant mortality rate, the high maternal mortality rate among Black women as well. So we know we can't trust the system either. We can't trust Black men. We can't trust our communities. We can't trust the system. And now we can't even trust ourselves because we have no control over our domain. We don't have control over our education, our food, our healthcare, nothing. This is not our society. We did not build this like this. So we have to learn how to navigate in a system that is, that is hostile to us and foreign to us. So a lot of us are going to choose abortions or want to choose abortions because we feel like that gives us more control over our fate. Especially when you have a group of men who are not worthy of having children for, period. And they haven't been in 4 or 5 decades because their jobs were outsourced to Asia after Vietnam. So now you have men who don't have jobs, right? Who have mental health issues, who have drug addictions. Then you have the crack epidemic in the Black community, right? We're not unified anymore. The men resent the women and the women resent the men. So we like fucking each other still, but I can't stand you and I don't trust you because you are operating in a system that is by design inimical to our success and progress, right? Like I said earlier, it's not a coincidence to me that Roe versus Wade was passed less than a decade after the Civil Rights Act was passed and white women had free access to Black penis legally without fear of being lynched. And also Black people had the unity, political unity, we had social unity, we had cultural unity, right? So they had to find a way to disempower us on the economic level by outsourcing jobs, on a political level by killing our leaders, on a social level by putting drugs in our community, on the cultural level by taking over our music and putting these whack-ass artists as a forefront of our culture, on the academic level by, integrating us into schools that wasn't shit, that didn't have resources. We were attacked on all fronts. And then abortion was promoted to ensure our numbers were low, right? Not only were our numbers going to be low, Black men will be put in jail because they didn't have jobs to take care of their families or because they were selling drugs. So again, I can't look at this as an individual, my body, my choice issue. I can't do that because our choices are not our choices. When you're living in a system, what you think are your choices are not your choices. There are things that are put in place for you by design, right? So you think you're choosing the right thing, but if you're choosing from a list of shitty choices, then that's not really a choice, is it? Because in my opinion, most women don't want to have abortions. It really bothers them. It hurts them to do this to their child. It hurts them. So if we really had a choice, that would not be a choice for us to choose like that. We would not want to be in a situation where we would feel unsafe having our own child. A lot of times abortions are forced by situations and circumstances that have been designed by a system that propagates chaos, dysfunction, and confusion among men and women. The capitalist system doesn't want the nuclear family because nuclear families don't spend as much money, right? Single women spend tons of money trying to lure the next partner with makeup and hair and clothes, right? Beauty regimens and things like that. But a married woman doesn't spend as much money as a single woman. She does not. So they don't want women to be married, right? Also, married couples, they are more unified when it comes to their politics, right? Men, by and large, don't fall for a lot of the shenanigans that women fall for politically. Like most men would not have advocated for LGBT reform. Most men who are married are very traditional, and they hold their wives to traditional standards, by and large. So the dominant society and these elites who run the world, they knew that by taking the man out of the home, they would weaken the community, which is what they did in the Black community. So again, it's not about family. They don't care about, marriage values. No, they want to make sure that there are enough babies to pay for the pension and the Medicare and the Social Security and the entitlements for the boomers who are retiring in droves. The ones they're not going to kill off with diseases that they're going to come up with. Those people. It's a Ponzi scheme that's collapsing because we're aborting too many babies. It was cool in the beginning when you wanted to destabilize the country, but now your pockets is looking real thin. Your pocket's looking real flat in the next 20 years as the birth rate declines, as less people get married, as less people buy homes, so it's less property tax revenue, right? As less people go to college because they don't want to pay this crazy debt for no job, for a whack-ass job that doesn't even take care of the debt. So let's force these women to have abortions. Again, it's a complicated issue, and it would not be fair to say it's right or wrong. I mentioned Melody and Ariane earlier. These are two different women with two different reasons for having an abortion, both legitimate reasons. That would make sense to most people, right? The problem, by and large, in my opinion, is that these men are not capable of taking care of their children to the point where women feel safe having them. So the men will blame the women and say, well, you shouldn't have sex with these men. But guess what? A lot of Black women put Black men on a pedestal. They put Black penis on a pedestal. So even though I know you ain't shit, right? I'm going to act like Summer Walker and pretend like the 4 baby mamas you have nothing to do with you. It's just those women that were the issue. I'm going to pretend like Sierra, like I'm the special snowflake and have a baby by a serial baby maker because I put Black penis on a pedestal and I'm competing with other women. And I always blame the other women for the things that men do. So of course, women are going to sleep with men that ain't shit because they think they're special. And they put men on the pedestal. There are so many layers to this that I can get into that I'm not doing right now. I have to piece this up into small segments because it's like, this is really, really deep. It's not just about the abortion rights. It's about why this is happening, why Black women feel compelled to have so many abortions, right? Why are men not good fathers to have children for, but they're good enough to fuck though? What kind of mentality is that, right? There's so many reasons for this, okay? But I'm going to leave it there. I look forward to reading your comments. No, I am not shaming women for having abortions. Please do not mention that in my comment section. Like I said, as an astrologer, I can see abortions in people's charts. So it's not a judgment from me. However, I do have to ask Black women, why are you continuing to have sex with men that you don't want to have babies for? By the tune of 300,000 plus per year? I wrote an article about this on the forum, and I'll put the link to that in the description box. Hopefully you guys will read it. It is not really a research article. It's just a couple of my thoughts and then some references to research that indicates that Black women have a low quality of life, lower than other groups of women, which would account for the high abortion rates, right? I hope you guys take a look at the article. I look forward to reading your comments. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I will speak to you soon.